Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a tea light project with Rinea Foils papers. You will need black glossy and black starstruck foiled paper with silver and arctic. So I've cut my 3D pieces individually, so because we're working with complex triangles it's easiest to do that, and you're going to add a glue tab to one side of your triangle. Now I've reinforced my Rinea paper here with some construction cardstock, and to tidy it up I'm just going to use an alcohol marker on the edge. This is going to hide that white edge in the finished product. Another top tip for when you're working with Rinea Foils papers, particularly the glossy ones, is to use an anti-static bag to remove your fingerprints. So before I started doing this particular section, I cut out all the pieces and then went back over with an anti-static bag to get rid of any fingerprints. So for your base pieces, you can use just a standard blade, as these aren't too complex. You could also cut these by hand, or if you have a die that matches this design, you could use that too. I'm not going to bother using the marker in the holes that are on the side of the tree. Do the same for the base, and again the base is created in 4 pieces with a glue tab to one side. So when I'm going along the edges here, I'm making sure that I go a little bit over the end of our glue tab, just so that you don't get little white corners sticking out. But you can always go back in with a black marker at the end if there's anything that you missed. So when I was designing this foil, I also did 2 acetate pieces, and that's to enable the light to shine up and through our tea light. So my next top tip is to actually overfold your edges. So you'll see in a minute when we start to do our folding. You want to make sure that you take it past the point where it's going to need to stick. And you notice that took a little bit longer just on that one corner where you could see a bit of white showing through the score line. Because of the thickness of this project, I did use a perforated score line, so that makes folding it a little easier. The acetate pieces, again these have a perforated score line, so you can go in with your fingers initially just to take that fold round. Pay particular attention to the corners to get those spot on. And now you want to overfold, so you're going to take that right down and give it a good solid score. This is particularly important with the triangle, as that's going to be going back on itself quite a bit. So into the centre of the triangle and the square acetate we have a little hole that I've cut out. and that's going to be used for our bamboo stem. For my next tip is to use red liner tape to adhere when we are working with 3D, and to also use glue. So in this video you'll see me just use the tape, but to make sure that your project lasts, you're going to want to add some PVA glue at the same time. Now there's loads of ways that you can decorate this project, so if you want to do any stamping at this point, you can do. So you could do stamping with ghost ink, for instance. You could also foil onto Rinea paper with a great amount of success. Make sure you get all the bubbles out of your tape, and those you can see quite easily. Another top tip for when you're folding anything that is coming to a delicate point is to use a ruler to help you keep your score line straight. So I'm pushing it right up against the edge of that ruler. Slowly curl it back over the wall so we get a nice sharp point. So again, going back to our overfolding of our score line. And that will help your project to not fight. Another top tip is to help you get underneath thin, delicate pieces like this, is to use a metal spatula, which you can see me using here. And it just helps you out where you couldn't get a bone folder to go underneath that to pick it up. So we're going to use the same red liner tape to adhere our acetate. Again, you can use a little bit of glue to help this process if you like. And if you're going to use glue, I would suggest using it both below and on top of your red tape, so that both sides get glue. I'm going to peel off one section at a time and line it up to the bottom of my tree. By working from the base up, you're making sure that the sides of your triangle will always be at the correct angle, and you are doing your adhering in a second. With this bit, it can be a bit fiddly, but just take your time. So with each side that you peel off, you're going to try and get your fingers in there and just press it down. And as we get to this last panel, it's going to get a bit more complicated. That's okay, just take your time. I'm going to remove the tape from both glue tabs. This means that essentially we're sticking two sides at once. The backing on the red liner can be a bit tough to get off, but we get there eventually. So you're going to push that one tab inside as we start to close up our triangle. And apologies for taking it off screen a little there. It's a little bit tricky to get this one. So once you've got it tucked in at the bottom, you can just slowly go up the sides, making sure that it stays nice and level. Okay, and that's our top of our tree. So, you want to make sure that you go around and press and seal down all the edges as well as you can. With the top part of the tree, you may get a little bit of white showing. So I'm just going back in with the fine tip of the marker. Up anywhere that's showing it as white. It's attention to details like this that are really going to help your project look good. There's the top of our tree. Now what I would do at this point is set it to one side, let it rest and set before trying to decorate it. But obviously when it's a video it's slightly different. I'm just going back in with the anti-static bag just to remove any of the fingerprints I've added while I've been doing all my folding and scoring. And it's just a case of just tapping that on, and then we can wipe it over with a nice clean Swiffer cloth. You can do the same to the base as well. So again, we're going to use red liner tape, and again I'd recommend using your glue both below and above your tape on this one. And when you're positioning double-sided tape, you want to try and get it as close to your score line as possible without going over it. So that just means that there's little opportunity for there to be tension to pull apart your design. So if you're working with just the Rinea sheet on its own, if you want to reinforce it so that you can do more detailed cuts, you can just apply a sheet of adhesive to the back. And that means that after you've cut your design, it's ready to be adhered straight to your surface. So the little Ds are cut out with Arctic glossy paper, and I did that so they would contrast nicely with the starstruck that you see in the base here. Once I put my base together, here's another top tip. You can actually line your base with some silver glossy Rinea, and that will actually help to channel the light up and through your tea light. You can also do the same to your tree pieces as well. If you're looking for warmer light, you can always use gold instead. So first of all, I'm going to stick my side pieces. As this time our acetate is going to sit down inside our base, which means that you can always then add some moss or other things if you don't want to use tea light. You want to try and get the edge of your piece that is sticking down as close to that score line as possible. So if you wanted to add that silver lining, you want to do that just before you stick this last piece together. And I'm going to overfold my fold so that it sits back to being nice and square. Now with the square piece that I'm putting in here, you don't actually have to glue it if you don't want to. You can just leave it so it just sits in there and rests in there. So depending on how your tea light works, you may want to be able to get access to it. testing it out with my bamboo, see how much I need to take off. So you can cut your bamboo with just some wire cutters or a really strong pair of scissors, and then just give it a little file with a nail file. I actually stuck mine into my tea light so that it could actually stay central. Lined ours in the end. There you go. And that shows you just how much light really does shine through. And there you go. One finished light. Hope you've enjoyed today's project, and don't forget to look at some of the others on this channel. And be sure to subscribe for the next video. Take care and bye!